What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the OT3 podcast. I'm Anthony, he's Matt, and of course, we got Paul. What's going on tonight, fellas?
If you're all ready for another great wrestling podcast, give me a hell yeah.
Who says that?
Stone Cold. And that's the bottom line because OT3 said so.
Really? And you're going to go that far?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I hope we're actually streaming.
Well,
We are live, so if anyone's watching this right now, if you don't mind
I'm on my
giving
cell
us
phone.
a comment. If you were wondering why we were taking a little bit longer than usual, is because we were having an issue getting the stream started up tonight. We think for right now, though, there is no more difficulties. So we are going to get right into it here with Monday Night Raw. Paul?
See it up.
Yeah?
Sorry, hey.
No, you're good.
I do see it up. Let's check this real quick. So they probably heard everything we were talking about. Like we were like, not one.
Fair enough. Well, there you go. A little extra
behind the
blooper reel
scenes.
for you tonight. So last week on Raw, one of the matches I thought that was really great, Matt, and I'm sure you got a chance to watch it, was the Dolph Ziggler Triple H match. At first, I was very not understanding of why the match was taking place. I know he's always had an issue with the Authority, but Ziggler, doesn't really have anything going on at Mania. Triple H already has his match, and I just kind of felt like, what's the point? But then I thought about it in a grander scale, and I thought, they're talking about how Triple H after Mania is probably going to be done, wrestling on the main roster, maybe for good. He might not wrestle again. They're saying this might be it for him. So for him to actually handpick, Ziggler to be one of his final, if not his final opponent on Raw for a long time, or maybe if he ever does wrestle again, I think that was a huge thing for Ziggler. You're going to have those normal fans that are all over the internet saying how Triple H buried Ziggler. But when you think about it, Triple H picked Dolph Ziggler to be the guy that he faced last on Raw, possibly. How do you feel about that?
I have no problem with that at all. I have no problem with that. I think it was a great match. I think it's a good way for Dolph to show that he can compete with the legends of wrestling. I mean, if you want to include Triple H is now basically a legend with how long he's been in it. I think it was great for him. It was great for the Monday Night Raw. It was a great, even a good up storyline was built up. Of him coming out, getting the slap in the face and everything. I thought it was great. It was great for Dolph. It got to him to display what he can do, and maybe it showed Triple H, hey, this guy, maybe he has something. Maybe he can be another, world title holder again somewhere down the line. I think that's a good thing for Dolph because almost like a tryout with Triple H itself. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think that match, despite Ziggler winning, not winning, I'm sorry, I don't think that hurts him. I think, if anything, that benefits him. Ziggler winning the match, I think, would have just caused more confusion, to be honest with you, unless it would have, unless prior to that, Reigns came down to distract Triple H, allowing Ziggler to win. But I just think that Ziggler losing that match didn't really hurt him. He put on a good showing, and it was a great match. And I thought it was one of the better matches on. It was definitely that, to me. It was the best match on Raw. It was one of the better matches I've seen in the last few weeks, is what I wanted to say. But I think it was great for him. And of course, at the end, after that, you had Ziggler, put on that great showing, and then of course, like we had talked about last week, your boy finally showed up as the Samoan badass that I said he needed to be. He has to come out
Finally.
there. He has to kick. He has to kick ass. I'm sorry
Wait,
for
wait. Before we
using
talk
that word
about
over
Roman,
again.
can we talk about one thing that involved Roman?
Yes.
What was with the wallet chain by Jack Swagger? What
Oh
was up with
God.
that?
Yeah. What was that? I thought. You know what I mean?
What the
I don't
hell?
remember seeing one of those in a long time, man. I was like, is it
All right,
seriously
bro.
happening?
It involved it towards the end of Roman. Let's go. Let's go to it though. I mean, he just kicked the living hell out of Triple H. We hadn't seen him do that since I think it was a TLC pay per view, correct?
I think it
But
was
this time,
TLC.
but
Yes.
this time I think it was a 10 times worse. Like he showed, it was almost like a heel Roman. I mean, obviously, he backed off at the end with the Usos and them, but it almost showed a heel Roman, a shield Roman, as I want to call it now, to where when him, Dean, and Seth were just destroying everyone, no holds bar, and that's almost what this was like. It was almost like this was shield Roman, take those prisoners. I'm going to kick your ass. And I think Roman needed this. I think this is something he needed, and I think maybe this could develop into a heel turn, which I think eventually he's going to need. But what were your thoughts about this Shield Roman coming back?
I like. It's so hard for me because like I said, I like that persona that they're building him to be. That he's, that he's that kind of guy. He's just gonna kick, he's gonna kick ass. He's gonna make stuff happen. He's not gonna sit around and try and pander to the fans, even though he's supposed to be, the face in the situation, because he's just not gonna get that reaction. Now, I don't think that they should turn him heel now because against Triple H that wouldn't do him much good. I could see him beating the Authority at WrestleMania, winning the title, maybe siding with Shane or whatever happens. And then maybe, you have one of these top guys, one of the face guys, say, trying to think of someone quick that might be in that world. Maybe like just because I could think of him quick, AJ Styles or someone that's like a big, that's over with the fans. And then you hear, Reigns comes out, shakes his hand, and then Reigns turns on him, and the crowd just, already boos him, but they're just going to go into him even further. And he could say, for years, I fought for all of you, and I wanted to be the champion. I finally get my chance at WrestleMania on the second time, and I finally got the title, and you still can't be happy for me. I don't need any of you, And then he could bring, he could be Shane's new guy, whatever, or he could just be on his own and be a heel. They could do
What if
so
The
many
Rock
things with
comes
that.
down after he wins the title at WrestleMania and he just flat out just he spears The Rock, and then the next time to Raw he said, you know what, I'm tired of Rock trying to overtake my glory. Like, remember The Rock came out at the Royal Rumble, stuff like that. I mean, what if
Yeah,
something like that happens? Remember, they're trying to get The Rock involved somehow. Maybe this is it. Maybe you use The
I
Rock to
think
turn him heel.
I think that would be huge.
How
That
huge would
would
it be if The Rock came out
instantly.
to give him a hug and he just Superman or speared The Rock and said on the next night on Raw, I'm tired of living in the family shadow. I'm tired of being the Samoan shadow, whatever. This is who I am. You can't steal my glory anymore like you did at the Rumble. What would you think if something like that happened?
Oh man, instantly. That just bona fides him as a top heel, because you're talking about The Rock, who to this day gets a better reaction than half the people on the roster, if not everybody, and he's not even, he's not has been on the main roster for, an extended period of time, other than like a month here and there where he make appearances in over 10 years, and the minute that music hits, the whole place erupts. So if he were to do that, I mean, at first you'd probably hear like those mixed cheers still because, they would think he's coming out to, to shake hands with Roman. And then when Roman spears him, that place would just go, they would just go completely anti-Roman, even further than they already would be, but that would kind of save it because a lot of people don't want to see him win, you know, against Triple H. But to do that, they're going to be like, all right, you know what? We finally got what they wanted. He's not going to be the next, top face like Cena was, but he is going to be a major player, which he should be. But now he's going to be the heel, and that opens the doors for a lot of other guys because going in to WrestleMania, Owens is the Intercontinental Champion. Um, the League of Nations, hopefully, those
Don't
guys
worry.
are done. And these are all heels, so that's what I'm saying. If you do that and you turn him, you have a lot of these face guys where I think can make the runs at the title.
Well, here's a
You know,
problem with the heels is they don't have any top heels. Yeah, you have Kevin Owens, League of Nations, but they aren't the top company heel. They're not what Seth Rollins was most of all last year. Seth Rollins most of all last year was the top company heel. Randy Orton was up there until, the whole authority turn face thing crap. So they need a top heel of this company while someone like Rollins is out. While Rollins is out, they're missing that. The League of Nations, I'm sorry, none of those guys can carry a company as a top heel. Kevin Owens, maybe 2 or 3 years down the line can, but as of right now, they don't have a top heel of this company. You can't say Triple H is a heel because he's getting cheers. Brock Lesnar is a face heel right now. I mean, people want him to be a badass heel destroying Ambrose, but people are cheering for him. Bray Wyatt, people cheer for him. That's the problem with heels and faces nowadays, is that a true heel gets boos. They don't get cheers. You look back in the day when Triple H was a straight up heel. Did he ever get cheered? He was booed. When Austin and Rock, even when they turned heel, they were getting boos. I mean, why do you think when Hogan came back at the NWO, they flipped him real quick? He was getting cheers in the match against The Rock at WrestleMania when he was supposed to be the heel. So really, I think heels, they say like Bray and people like I guess Triple H now and Owens, they get cheered. That's not a heel. A heel is supposed to be someone who gets booed, booed, booed. I remember Randy Orton was heel with Legacy when he was facing Kofi. He was getting booed out the arena with Kofi, and Kofi wasn't even a top baby face at the time, and he was getting booed, and that's a problem. Even when you bring Orton back, I spoke to you the other day about making him a heel. He's going to get cheered. I mean, when Rollins first turned, obviously when he turned on the Shield, they were a big face at the time, so he got booed. But over a while, these fans, I, I I know it's a younger generation and everything now, but it just seems like heels don't get booed like they used to back in the day. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's like you said, the generation now, and I mean, I like to think that I'm more on this side. I root for the bad guys usually because they're just so much. I think to me personally, they just have so much more animation with some of the stuff they say. Like when you listen to an Owens talk, sometimes or you listen to like Jericho in Canada, like they just rip into people, and to yourself, you're like, man, like that guy just said that. Like this is a storyline, but it still makes you chuckle. Like Jericho, we talked about this when it was at Roadblock. He's from Canada. He's Canadian. He's sitting there and he just starts ripping into the Canadians. You guys should be happy that I'm from here. I'm about the only good thing that's come out of this country, you know, stuff like that. And it just like makes you sit there and you laugh to yourself like, man, this guy is just ripping into them. But on the inside, he's got to be like, man, I love my heritage. I love this country. But he is just letting them have it. And like Randy Orton, during those times you were talking about, one of the best things. I remember he looked into the crowd and he was on the mic and he told them, he said, look next to you. He's like, you might have your wife, your girlfriend, your sister, your mom, your aunt, whoever it is. Just know at the end of the night, they want to be in bed with Randy Orton. Stuff like that. And you just laugh to yourself because these people just boo the heck out of them. And it just
They
makes
don't
it so
have
much
that
more
anymore.
enjoyable. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Jericho last week reminded me of why I love watching those heel guys get into people like that because the crowd just goes so into it. And that's what you want to watch these shows for is you want the crowd to be that much invested in it, you know? At least like you said, even the face guys, like, Daniel Bryan, when he came out, the crowd would go nuts. Yes, 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 would chant nuts. AJ Styles, you're starting to see he's getting a following. But even like Owens, he's supposed to be a huge, he's a heel, but yet he gets more cheers than most of the faces. The New Day, another example, they're a huge heel team.
They were
They
at
do all
first.
those
They
heel
were getting
tactics,
boos, and then people
but
got around to them because they were
yeah, now
funny.
people love them. Exactly, because they go out there like that. They go into their home state and they're like, "Where are we tonight?" And Booty Lana. Like they make sure like that they call the town, they bring it up somehow, and it gets the fans very invested into it, and and it makes it more enjoyable for the viewers.
I have a question for you. Before we get to the rest of Raw last week, there's one heel guy I think in NXT that if they bring up and package him right, he could be a true heel, and you know who I'm talking about. I know who you got to know who I'm talking about right now.
I think it could be one of two people. So I mean, I'll guess it, and I'm gonna hope that I'm right. Is it Baron Corbin?
It's Corbin. Corbin gets booed out the effing arena apparently wherever he goes
Oh
now.
yeah.
That's someone that Triple H or one need to look at and say, God, this guy could be a heel. Bring him up. Team him with Kevin Owens or something. You got to get Corbin someone that if you package him right, he could be a great heel up above, especially in the main roster. But the thing is, they got to package him right. You can't do what you did with Tyler Breeze, bring him on as a heel and make him look like a goddamn joke.
Don't get me started about that,
Don't get started.
please.
Okay,
No,
let's get
not
into
on
the
Tyler
rest of the Raw
Breeze.
review.
I
Let's
I will
go.
touch on that Corbin thing because it made me laugh because I actually just read an interview he had with WWE earlier, I think today, and they were just saying, why did it was about the Aries, why'd you attack Aries? And he said, well, Regal was out there and he cost me my title shot, so Aries was just in a bad place at the wrong time. And he said, so you don't respect, what he said, I don't respect anybody. He said, I was in the NFL, I was in the top 1%. He said, this guy, it took him 10 years, he's not even in the top 95%, of wrestling. And it's just like stuff like that. And you're like, you see, this guy has all the makings of what a heel needs. He knows how to, he knows how to get, and he even said the internet, like, wrestling community will probably, get all over me for saying this, but you have to do that. In this day and age, it's so much based on all these people, tweeting or Facebook. And if you are on Facebook, please follow Off the Top Turnbuckle. But, all of these things that these guys have to do. And if you're going to be a heel, you have to know how to get under the skin of the viewers. You can't just, say stuff because if you say it to the point where it's funny, like I said, the New Day, the stuff they say is hilarious. And, they're still the heels in most matches because they do something at the end that costs, the face the match, whether it's like Xavier gets involved from the outside. But most of the stuff they say, you start cracking up, because it's so funny. Like Bootios, like now it's a serial about it. I mean, stuff like that. And I feel like they don't have that guy anymore. And that's where Roman, going back to our main point, that's where Roman could come into a brand new thing. Because if he turns on The Rock, instantly, everyone turns on him already than they already did.
Now, here I have a question for you. You turn
Okay.
Roman heel. What do you do with Seth Rollins when he
I
returns.
was just about to say and that builds to when Seth returns, say SummerSlam. Seth comes back and says, you know what? Because the Authority would be out of power because Shane would win. This is in a perfect world. So there's no authority to save him. But he would be able to come back because you know the minute that his music hits, whenever he does return, that the
It's gonna
crowd's going to
pop.
go nuts. Yeah, the crowd's going to go nuts because they're going to be excited to have him back. So he could come back and he could say, I know you've been waiting for me, big brother. Like Roman tweeted him, and he said, I'm glad you kept that title warm. He said, but there's one thing. He said you could be mad at everyone else. He said, but you still could never beat me for that title or something like that. And it would be an even bigger investment, and immediately you cement Rollins back as the face, but do they really want to do that? Is the thing,
He was a
Do they
great
want to
heel.
make Rollins because as a heel, exactly, he was on the mic, his mannerisms, his charisma, all that kind of stuff was perfect. So I definitely think that Roman moving forward, though, whether it's right after Mania or in the next year, I think they got to try at least once because you look at all these guys, everyone's like, oh, these guys aren't stars. You go back to the 90s when The Rock and Stone Cold and Triple H came up. I mean, those gimmicks, people hated them. Rocky Maivia, they used to chant, die, Rocky, die at him. They
What
didn't
was
like
Triple
him.
H's stupid gimmick? Like,
Well,
just it was
when he
just
was in
Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
WCW, it was terrorizing, which was horrible. And then it was Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and he used to bow down. He was supposed to be like this,
Yes.
like regal royalty
Ugh.
type guy. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. These guys, they didn't like the character, and then Stone Cold was the ringmaster. I mean, like these guys took time, and that's the thing is Roman already is in his thing, but they need to maybe make him a heel. Like The Rock benefited greatly when he joined the Nation of Domination, and he became the leader of the group when he threw Farouk out. So maybe that's something they think about. They push Roman to the heel, and he just goes anti fans because that's where he's getting the booze from, and he's supposed to be a good guy right now. So it could be little by little, like you said, they teased with the Usos stopping him. Maybe he hits one of them the next time they get involved, and then it culminates at WrestleMania. He wins the title finally. They come down, and he turns on his whole family and says he doesn't need them the next night on Raw. And you lead to something else because it's going to be the Raw after Mania. It could be a huge deal. Anyone could come out there. A brand new match is made. Roman becomes an even bigger star than he already is.
Yep. All right. Continuing on the Raw review, we talked about the New Day League of Nations. Obviously, after the match, League of
Yes.
Nations completely just destroyed the New Day, like completely, like Roman Reigns on Triple H destroyed. So now, like as I stated on the show last week, they're going to have a 3-on-4 match for the titles, and that's what it seems like it's going to be. It's going to be 3-on-4. I guess what they're going to have now is whoever has the titles, whoever can defend. We saw Xavier Woods was defending last week, which it's always
Hmm.
been Kofi and Big E, which makes me believe maybe Xavier maybe was hurt or had something wrong with him, and he was actually maybe he was finally cleared to wrestle or something like that. Maybe more competitiveness. So we have that. But let's talk about the ending of Raw last week with another prediction almost came true for me. I was almost 2 for 2 last week, wasn't I?
Yeah.
We had Shane came out with Undertaker and Vince in the ring, and it all culminated to Shane finally calling Undertaker Vince's bitch. Shane put a little bit of good fight up against Taker, finally getting chokeslam, and at the very end, as Vince is looking on laughing, Taker turned straight to Vince and was motioning to probably give him a chokeslam before Vince cowardly got out the ring. So it seems like Undertaker took very serious defense to that "you're Vince's bitch," which is almost, if you look at Shane's point of view, that's what it looks like right now. So, what do you think is going to happen at Mania? I mean, this is culminating where it's just now Undertaker just defending his yard. He doesn't care who he's fighting for. He's going in the Devil's Playground, and when you enter the Devil's Playground, things happen. Bad things happen. So, I mean, where do you think they're going with this? Do you think eventually Taker's going to realize, maybe he beats Shane up enough and then just put Shane's arm over him, or do you think Taker's going in there for blood now and think, possibly Shane doesn't win this? Because now it's looking like Shane probably won't win this match at WrestleMania. What are your thoughts after Raw?
Uh, honestly, I think it did a lot for the story. I just don't know where because you saw that Shane, like every time Undertaker tried to go, Shane was that much quicker. You saw it, like you said, he tried to throw him up the first time. Shane, now was he affecting him? That's a whole nother story. But you could see that Shane was just beating him to where he could, you know. Um, but the Undertaker wasn't getting phased, it seemed like. And then, of course, to not sell too much, they had Vince push him in, and of course, just making Vince look, even worse that he's going against his son. But I don't know personally, to be honest with you, if Shane's going to lose this match. or if you know, the Undertaker's going to lose. I think it's still. I want to see more in the next 2 weeks before. I know we have tonight and next Monday. I have read that neither Shane or Undertaker will be there tonight, so I don't know how they're going to go about that if neither of them are there. Hopefully that report was false because I think you at least need to have one or the other there to at least further the story. Whether it's Shane come out there and say, last week my dad did that and pushed me an Undertaker, and that's okay. Um, but I'm just not too sure what they're going to do exactly with that. Me personally, I don't see why you bring Shane back for one match at WrestleMania and tease to the fans that he could run Raw again when that's something that the fans have been asking for years for Shane to return. And now to have the opportunity, he could be the next general manager and be the guy in charge of Monday Night Raw and all of WWE possibly in the storylines is something that I think not only me I would like to see just to see what happens, but also I think a lot of fans would agree with me. I mean, I think you agree with me as well. We've talked about it that you'd like to see Shane back in power as well, but um, going into it, I don't know. It's too hard to call for me to be honest with you. First, I was like Shane's going to win the match. You're not going to have Shane lose. But then after watching that, you're like the Undertaker's not going to come in there. I can't see like how I predicted before that Undertaker's going to be like, "All right, Shane won't stay down. I'll let him, you know, I'll let him win." The only way I see that happening is because Vince keeps saying, like Shane said, Vince, you're Vince's bitch. Does Vince do something during the match that causes the Undertaker to just snap even worse and be like, you know what? You think that I'm your guy? You think you can just tell me what to do? And then he just lays down and, swallows his pride for the fact of knowing that Vince will be out of power and he can't just, make him his measuring, guy that he goes to every time, the measuring stick of the WWE, and just be like, I'll stick Undertaker on you. So,
It's gonna be interesting. I mean, I can't wait to see tonight. Obviously, we'll get to the review. Preview later. But let's go ahead and shift into. Let's stay with the WWE real quick and shift into NXT. And talk. I want to talk a little bit about the takeover. That's cool if that's okay with you, Mr. Anthony.
oh yeah,
That's what. I have a question.
all
No.
right.
What is NXT like? Yeah, is it in every episode, like every Raw? Or
No, no,
is
and
it
it's
Raw?
NXT is every Wednesday from 8 to 9 on the WWE Network, which you can only see for $9.99 a month. And it's basically like for younger talent, for guys coming up in the wrestling scene, people they get over from indie. So it's basically like the WWE. I guess you can say they're minor leagues, their development league. I guess is what you can say, Anthony. I guess something
Yeah,
like that.
you want to say it's like like basically like Matt said, a lot of the guys are indie guys, which means that they've been on the independent scene for over. Some of them have been on the independent scene for like 10, 15 years, so they've wrestled just not on the major company like the WWE or something of that nature, and then they come here, and it's the performance center is like it's a state of the art facility from what I read. Basically, they have all kinds of stuff there for these young guys that maybe have never wrestled before to train to get help however they can. They have trainers there on site with just not only with just in-ring work, interviews and stuff like that. So it's technically a developmental ground type thing, but some of these matches, and I'll say some of those guys on the roster are better than what you see on the main. Um,
Wow, nice.
yeah, so like Matt was saying, like the guy Finn Balor, he talks about a lot, the Balor Club. He was in the indies and he was in Japan wrestling for years, and he doesn't necessarily need to go to NXT, but they wanted to bring him here and kind of learn like the WWE. It's kind of a good way to put them into the main roster. They kind of learn the way WWE does it as opposed to other companies. So it's like a little transition period as well for some of the guys that have been veterans of wrestling, just maybe not in WWE.
Gotcha. All right.
So
That makes sense.
so let's talk about Takeover. We got some matches that have already been announced. We got Finn versus Joe. Austin Aries versus Corbin. You're gonna have the women's match, the tag team titles matches. So we have then you have Sami Zayn versus Nakamura. Did I finally say that
Hmm.
right? Nakamura.
Yeah,
So it's almost shaped up to where this could almost.
say it,
You want me to say it?
say it.
Could potentially be better than WrestleMania. I want to get into WrestleMania after this and talk about the thing I touched you about the main event thing. But let's go to NXT. If Finn is coming up, and it's they've been talking about it. Does Joe finally win this match? Do you think Joe will get the title, and Finn's going to hand the NXT reigns over to Joe, and Finn, like so many people before him, are shooting up to the main roster? Or do you think they do what they had with Kevin Owens, have Finn win this one and debut with the NXT title, like almost like what Kevin Owens did and stuff like that?
I think either way, despite whether he debuts or not, whether Joe wins or not, obviously if Joe wins, then you definitely see a rematch because Finn's gonna, whether it's at like a NXT taping or whether it's at a next
You
event.
mean like how Owens had his
How
rematch
oh
with Finn?
exactly like
Yeah,
he had his rematch at the next one in August, which was because he lost in July at the Beast
Brooklyn.
in the East, and then I'm sorry, yeah, in August at Takeover Brooklyn in the it was a ladder match, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, he did the double duty. He had the NXT ladder match, and then the next night he was at SummerSlam.
Versus
I could
Cena.
see that. I could see that happening. I don't see Joe losing again, to be honest with you. Even if Finn doesn't move up, I think that this might be a thing of if Finn loses, that him and Joe have, a feud going into the summer again in NXT. But I think that the way I'm seeing it is that Finn's moving up because they're going to have to do someone big from NXT is going to get moved up. The Raw after Mania.
Yeah, I mean, you already had Sami. Sami Zayn's already made his debut. Enzo and Cash, they're coming. They're coming. Obviously, everyone knows Enzo and Cash are basically coming. I think Finn's going to be the major guy. Not saying anything from Enzo and Cash. Stone Cold came out and said these guys have no ceiling. Stone Cold has been praising Enzo and Cash. He said Cash could be a future world champion. If you didn't read his report
No, I didn't
late
read that.
last week, yeah, he said Cash's ceiling is there is no roof for Cash. He's going all the way up. But I see Finn, making the jump. I think the Bulletproof Baylor Club, they're eventually going to debut. I really think I really think Finn's going to debut with Gallows and Anderson. I don't see Sammy winning this match. I don't think Nakamura is going to lose his first match in NXT because that would take off any kind of momentum he has or whatever. The credibility would look horrible. And the same goes for Austin Aries. I don't think Austin Aries is going to lose to Corbin at all either. I think Corbin's going to take another loss at a takeover. I feel really bad for the guy because he's almost like a jobber, like what Breeze was before Breeze eventually got brought up. If you remember, Breeze was losing constantly in NXT, but it also goes to show you that even if you lose in NXT, doesn't mean you're not going to get called up. I mean, Enzo
Yeah.
and Cash have yet to win a world title tag teams, and they're still going to get called up. The women's title, that's where things get interesting. Do you keep the title on Bailey, or do you see her finally also moving up and becoming the women John Cena?
Uh, it's tough, man, because the way they've built Asuka so far, she hasn't lost a match. Um, so does she finally lose her first match to Bailey, or does Bailey lose to Asuka and continue that there's just no way, that no one can find a way to beat Asuka? If you do that, who is there left in NXT, to beat Asuka finally for the first time? I feel like once you have that first loss with someone that you're building up to be this huge deal, they can lose other matches, but that first match has got to be something where you're like, okay, I get it. If you have her lose a match to, not taking anything away, but there's some younger, you know, talents. And when I say younger, I mean like getting new to NXT, like Peyton Royce. She's good, but if she has a match with her and then she beats her, no one really knows her yet. I'm sorry, Bailey is the most credible that's there right now. So having her lose, and that cements her even further as, a future of the women's division. And like you said, people keep saying the future John Cena of the women. Um, so that's something that could happen too there. So I think that one, I'm going to go with Bailey to win it. But I'm not going to be surprised if Asuka does end up pulling it out because the way they've been building her up to where she's not losing any match and no one really has an answer. People will put up a fight, but there's no one that can end up winning the match to beat her. So, but I'm going to stick with Bailey as the winner of that match.
Okay, I know we're starting to make little small predictions now. Just everyone, just realize we're going to redo these predictions next week. Next week, I want to have a big WrestleMania takeover special. It's going to be our show next week, so we're going to be redoing these predictions. So let's just hold off on the predictions. What do you think?
Well, that was foreshadowing to let you
Yeah,
know that I'm not going to
foreshadowing for
switch
next
my
week.
that was I'm not switching my mind next week.
All right, so for NXT, if you don't mind, I would like to shift to some big TNA news that happened this past week. If that's okay with you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a new that's a 10 TNA champion after 5 weeks of this show of me saying Matt Hardy cannot be the face of this company. It's finally happened. He has lost the title in Money in the Money in the Bank.
No,
No,
Feaster fired.
that's right. I mean, it kind of looked like Money in the Bank. I mean, I'm not saying they stole anything, but it's feast or fire. Drew Galloway, also known as Drew McIntyre, is in WWE. Came out after the triple threat between Ethan Carter, Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy and cashed in his money. I mean, Feast and Fire match. I'm doing that as a stupid bit, but anyway, and took the title off Matt Hardy. Yeah, thanks. And Drew Galloway is your new heavyweight champion. So that was a big news for there. And then they had some tapings this weekend, and we learned something about the tapings this weekend. Two of the longest tenure TNA stars have been requested and granted their release from the company. One being Bobby Roode, the other being Eric Young. Now the reasoning was, after I read about it, was money was an issue. They didn't feel like they were getting paid what they should have. The Bobby Roode one really confused me. They just reunited Beer Money. So, that's everything. They just won the tag team titles. And then this came out. I'm like, obviously, spoiler alert, obviously Beer Money's going to drop the titles. They have to. Eric Young's going to drop his King of the Mountain title, obviously. So spoiler alert on that. But it makes me wonder, what does James Storm think? Obviously, they said after the match they gave an emotional hug. So obviously, do you think Storm knew this was coming? Or do you think Rude just caught everyone off guard in that locker room?
I think it's something that you kind of tell, that's like just with anything, a regular job. You kind of tell the people you're close to, like, hey, I'm just letting I'm probably going to be, taking off from here soon. It's just not working out here at this job. And I think it was hard for Rude and Young, but I think them doing together probably was a lot easier because they both signed their contracts together. I think it was 12 years ago, they said, when they took that picture of the two of them that I saw. Um, I also read that Rude said it was just getting stale. So, I mean, I don't think it's a diss on anybody, but I think maybe he just didn't want to be in Beer Money again. Not to say it wasn't a great tag team, but it was the exact same thing. Storm returns and they put him right back into a tag team with Rude. And I think Rude was just kind of over, the same storylines over and over again,
Do you
which
think
we've
he's starting to
talked about.
realize what I've been saying for the past 5 weeks on the storylines in TNA are starting to get a little ridiculous and the direction that company's going in?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what happened, unfortunately. It sucks for TNA because those are two big talents, to lose, especially I've always said I think Rude was the best. This was even back when they were a huge deal that would never go over to WWE, you know. And I remember when he had that world title reign, it was a huge
It was a
deal,
great run.
And they would, well, I think that his nickname was the It Factor at one point. Was that right?
When he turned heel, that caught everyone. When he smashed that beer bottle over James Storms, even me, as just an occasional watcher, was like, did he really just turn heel? Shaved his head and just completely reamped himself. Wearing the suit. I think he was one of the best heels in TNA for what he did. I mean, obviously
I
they
think he
turned
was
him
one of the
back
best heels in
face.
wrestling
Yeah.
at the time.
Now you go with this. Does Triple H or WWE jump on this? Do you jump on
We've
getting Bobby Roode?
we've talked about this.
We did.
Um,
We haven't talked about it on air.
right. I just don't see the purpose of continuing to grab the guys that leave TNA. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's a great opportunity because those guys want to be on the main stage of WWE. But at a point, everyone used to knock on TNA and be like, "Oh, they just take the old WWE guys and they use them as their main event guys." It started off with it wasn't as bad, in the beginning, but like Christian went over there, made a huge name for himself, came back. But then, they had other guys showing up there, like WCW guys that didn't want to go to WWE at first, but they just kept picking up. Then Booker T, then Kurt Angle, then Mr. Anderson, then both the Hardys, and this wasn't in chronological order. This is just me naming them, and it started to get to the point, and they're watching like you had like the guys like Rude and Storm and AJ and Samoa at the time, who were like the young guys that started there, and all these WWE guys that didn't make it over here are going over there and taking their spotlight. So, you know, it worked out with Aries. Aries was a, TNA, an ROH guy and a TNA guy, came over to NXT. Samoa Joe, obviously, I mean, people were clamoring that for a while. And then AJ, came from TNA, but he went right to the main roster, so that made it a little different.
It
But if you
shows
start
what
bring,
age. It shows the popularity of AJ. I think,
right,
especially the
exactly.
talent he is.
But then you have like James Storm came over, it didn't work out. You bring over Rude, which I said I like Rude. I think that maybe that would be a good thing. But then you bring over Eric Young. I just feel like eventually all these guys will be like, yeah, you know what? I'll just leave TNA. I'll get a chance somewhere else. And is it becoming TNA light? Is it becoming a TNA junior? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I can see what you're saying, but I don't think really. I think, like you said, Austin, Joe, and AJ. I think they were They were good in TNA. They were the top people in TNA. I think Rude is someone that could do something in NXT. I think you could bring him in because, like I said, with Same thing as the main roster, TNA. I mean NXT. You only have two major heels, which are going to be Corbin, as in single heels for men, Corbin and Joe. So I mean, Rude, maybe if he does his heel persona, could be great in NXT. Maybe put him up. But I think if you bring Rude over, I really think he's going to be like, don't put me in any tag team of anyone. I don't want to do that. I want to show what I can do on my own. And I think Rude needs to go somewhere. If it's not WWE, if it's not NXT, New Japan, RH, go somewhere and just be a singles guy. I think he's shown enough when he was the heel that he can be a singles guy. I think, like you said, that's what his problem was in TNA. They wanted him to bring him back as a tag team, and he's just like, I think he wants to do something on his own. And he said, the reason they didn't pay him more was because they weren't using him. Well, the problem they weren't using him was because they were, using other top guys, people like Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, like you said, recycled people. Hardy, like I said, is not a top guy in a company. So if I'm if I'm a guy like a Rude who's been there for a while, it's like, really, you're making this guy the face of my company when you have people like Ethan Carter, even Rockstar, Spud, you have people like that who's been working their asses off in the lower scene, and you make this guy our world champion. Like, really? That's you're gonna give him more money than me, and he's a wash-up WWE star. I was like, I would even prefer Jeff Hardy as a champion over Matt Hardy. So I think Rude just needs to go a fresh start somewhere as a single competitor. Same thing for Eric Young, whether it's NXT or just anywhere, and be a singles guy and show what he can do as a single competitor.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they don't end up going to NXT, I think that would be huge for New Japan to grab one of those, if not both of those guys, because they lost a lot of guys
I wouldn't
recently.
mind Rude as a Baylor Club, not a Baylor Club,
Bullet Club,
Bullet
yeah, that's
Club
what I'm
member. I
saying.
think he'd be great as a heel in that.
Those guys heading over there, ROH, whoever gets them, it's going to be good additions. I just don't see both of them both going to NXT. I think that Rude might, and I'm not saying there's no chance Young will. I just think if it's between the two, I think Rude is the guy that I would rather see in NXT. In that landscape, I think that he would do a lot more for that business right there.
That's our big and TNA news.
Real quick, also talking about Galloway. So Galloway became the champion, which was something I thought was long overdue. And I know people were clamoring for it when he was in WWE. They had that, he was the chosen one persona, and it just kind of never came to fruition. So I think that was a good thing, and that's opening a lot to, the future. And I think, like I've talked about, I know I've mentioned him a lot too. I think that this guy Bennett, Mike Bennett, is going to be something really special for them. And with EC3 already there, like me and you both agree with that. I think that they're going to have some fresh matches, and then the X Division upcoming. I just think it's going to be a matter of the storylines working out and people are starting to view it to watch again. Yeah, well, I mean, if they start off with these kind of matches and you see different storylines, I think it's a chance that you at least have to get some kind of little bit of a fan base. I mean, you're not going to get a huge fan base back, and then maybe look at, okay, you know what, we need a new ownership. But I mean, making these kind of moves where they're putting the title on Galloway and showing EC3 off and showing Bennett, and then Tyrus even being involved somehow, I think that's good for him too. So I'm actually interested again, and I don't know if I'm going to start watching on a regular basis, but I'll definitely be keeping up to date with the spoilers. I know they have their Sacrifice pay-per-view will be getting taped here shortly, or it's already done. Yeah, I was going to say, I know that they're going to be doing the post ones, I think, in April.
So.
Yeah. So definitely interesting stuff going on with a lot of moves. Like you said, they've been losing a lot of talents. I read today that I don't know what kind of, if it's like big names or what, but supposedly the VP of talent and TNA said they signed 5 new talents. So who they are, it could just end up being, like younger guys that aren't proven yet, or maybe they get someone big and, they surprise everyone and he shows up. Obviously not banking on that, but it's definitely something to keep our eye on.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think it's time to shift to our Raw preview. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Get ready to end the show. Preview for tonight again. Obviously, I want to see more Shane Undertaker. I want to see where this goes. I want to see where it goes with Vince. I want to see if Vince says anything about pushing Shane, about see if he calls out the Undertaker for trying to turn on him. And I want more Jericho promos tonight. And I want to see where this thing goes with Roman. Do they keep teasing the heel? And speaking of Roman, we forgot one more thing. I want your thoughts on Vince wanting to change the main event to Dean Ambrose and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. What are your thoughts on that, real quick?
No, absolutely not. I don't think that should be the main event.
I'm with you.
I'm all about that match being a big match. But if Dean Ambrose and Lesnar's the main event, then why not give Dean Ambrose the world title against Triple H at Roadblock and just make Triple H and Reigns, a regular match? I don't see why. The only match I'd argue should be the main event, other than the world title,
Shane and Taker.
is Shane and Taker. But here's the thing: is the craziest thing. The three biggest matches all have part-time wrestlers in the match. Shane and Undertaker is two of them. Triple H and Reigns has one, and Lesnar and Ambrose has one. So no matter what, a main event's going to have a part-time star. I'm not hugely against that, but that's why I think I sway more towards Triple H and Roman being the main event. Because if Shane and Undertaker's before, yes, I think that match is going to be crazy. With it's a Hell in a Cell. It's between for the control of Monday Night Raw, but I just don't see how if you want to make Roman this big deal, whether people agree with it or not, that has to close WrestleMania with him standing on the turnbuckle with the title in his hand.
And Spear in the Rock.
If that happens, that'd be
I
great.
think it should go, just real quick, what it should do is should go Dean, Lesnar, Shane, Taker, and then so on and so forth.
I definitely think, yeah, you definitely have to have breaks in between, but I wouldn't even be surprised if you see one of those matches in the first hour. I would probably say Dean and Lesnar, because if you backstack those three fights in the last hour and a half, what do like what matches do people have to, otherwise you just wait until 9:30 to watch those three. So I think
All right.
one of them might happen in the first hour or so, hour and a half.
True. All right, let's go ahead and go to your preview for tonight. What do you want to see tonight?
I want to see. I'll be honest with you. I know we're not huge. I'm not huge on the League of Nations, but I liked what I saw. If they're gonna be like that, the four of them, beating down people and being dominant, and not just them arguing about who's going to be in a tag team title match or watching, them backstage just like pushing each other and pumping each other up just to lose another match. I think that that's something that could have been it really could have been good. These guys could have won the titles from the New Day. It would have been believable. And then you have like a Del Rio or a Sheamus win like the United States or the Intercontinental title, and maybe one of them has a shot at the world title, but you have a faction where all of them have the titles. Something like that. Not saying now. I think like me and you have said that I think the ship kind of sailed on people buying into that being the
Well, the
real
problem
deal.
also is Wade Barrett's freaking leaving in June, so that doesn't help either.
Yeah.
They're not going to be around. Maybe Wade leaves and maybe they recruit Kevin Owens. Who knows?
So I mean,
Maybe
what
put
they
Chris
do.
Jericho in that group.
Yeah, if he sticks around, I don't know how much longer he'll be around either, because he usually
Right.
does like months at a time. So, and the biggest thing that I really want to see tonight is announce the match for Kevin Owens. I mean, this guy's announcing that Mania is going to be KO Mania. People are going to be on their feet chanting KO Mania. And yet, less than 2 weeks, and the Intercontinental Champion doesn't have a match. Like, yeah, everyone knows what they think's going to happen, but no one knows for sure what the match is going to be. There's speculation that it's just going to be Zayn versus Owens, which is going to be an awesome match. Then there's speculation that it's going to be a multi-man match for the Intercontinental title. But then the same people that say that say, well, they're going to do Jericho versus Styles again, so it can't be them in the match. And then Neville got hurt, so any kind of build they had to Neville being in that feud for the title, that's gone.
Speaking of Neville, we didn't talk about Raw last week with the incident with Charles Robinson and Jericho.
Oh yeah. Jericho, I think, was trying to tell him like,
This
like I
dude's
said,
hurt.
he's hurt, and he tried to play it off as much as he could into his heel gimmick. But then at one point, it seemed like the two of them were actually, Charles like seemed like he got, Robinson got really upset. It seemed like about Jericho pushing him.
What was going on? That's probably what the problem was. Robinson probably didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. So, sorry we kind of cut in there, but that actually led. Since speaking of Neville, brought that back up. But I think,
Sorry.
I think the Miz should be in that match. I think the Miz has done a lot for all of those guys. Whether he's losing mostly every time he's in a match, but he's putting on pretty good matches and helping these guys. He's elevating them as much as he can and doing that Miz TV and just giving them that extra little spotlight to shine and talk and make the Miz. The Miz is the one that's coming out here making them look better. It's not really necessarily helping the Miz. So putting him in at least in the Intercontinental title at Mania, if it's a multi-man match, wouldn't be a bad thing for me. I still, my six original was Neville, Miz, Zayn, Owens, Jericho, and Styles. I think that the Jericho, Styles, and Zayn and Owens could have been a combined one, but then there's that on that same hand of, do you want Styles' first WrestleMania to be in a multi-man match that he loses? and you want Zayn to have 2 losses in his first WrestleMania weekend. So that's the
Yeah.
other thing is if Nakamura loses at Takeover, so Zayn is going to win the Intercontinental title. I don't know what they're going to do there with that. But I'm really hoping, that we get that answer tonight. That is probably my number one thing is get the answer to that. What is he going to do? Does The Rock, like you already said too, does The Rock surprise everyone and show up and then we get more of what he's going to be doing? Because, I mean, this was outside of 2 months before WrestleMania announced. This was like the biggest main event they announced. They're like, The Rock will be involved. And he keeps saying somehow. What somehow? It's not going to be like one of those
He
backstage
always
things
shows
where he
up in
says,
Philly for some reason.
yeah, well, I hope
But
it's not finally The Rock is, back home, which is great. I love seeing that. And finally The Rock is back at WrestleMania, and then that's it. What you could have just had him show up at Mania, and people would have been even more surprised. But to build it up that much, that far out, hopefully he has some kind of integral part in a
well, I
match
hate to
or something.
disappoint you, but he posted an Instagram photo earlier in the day in Baywatch set, so I don't think he's going to be there tonight. He's wearing
That doesn't
shorts. I don't
matter.
think they're wearing shorts in
That's
Philly.
fine. He could get there in time, man.
I would
You got to
hope.
remember. You got to remember these guys have some kind of money, Matt. I don't think you understand that. I'm sure he's got a
Oh, I
private
do.
jet that'll fly
Well,
him
Rock has the
to
most money.
Philadelphia.
You know what the
Exactly.
sad part is right now? We went through the whole show and didn't even mention the Wyatt family. That just shows that they're not even involved in anything, and that's
Well,
sad.
that was actually part of my Raw preview.
What are they going to do? We
Exactly.
found out that Bray's finally
They're gonna
hurt.
be in the
So
they're gonna be in the Memorial Battle Royal. I mean,
then
I
Bray's
don't see
got to
anything
win.
around it.
Bray
Bray
or
has to win.
Bray or
Has
Strowman.
to win.
Or Strowman.
If Bray's not in it, that's fine, but he has to win. And like I said, the only way he either has to be involved and win that match, or he has to show up at the Shane Undertaker match and help Shane somehow. Whether it's
Or
how
he
he does
costs
it.
Lesnar his match and they set their feud up for SummerSlam.
Yeah, but the thing I have a problem with that is I don't think that Lesnar is going to be around, so then we're just going to kind of sit on it for 5 months, and then
Like we always
Wyatt's
do
going to
with
exactly.
Lesnar.
That's what I don't
Crap.
want for Wyatt, and I hear they're saying they want to put Wyatt back in the title picture, which would be great, but then I
Oh yeah,
think about if
they did
Wyatt,
say immediately after WrestleMania they wanted
yeah,
him and Ambrose have big things coming up.
yeah. So if Wyatt wins the Memorial Battle Royal, which is on the pre-show, what what does that do for him?
I don't know, man. It's sad.
I'm really not sure. I think that, like I've said this many a times, I think that him personally is the most underutilized talent, but as the Wyatt family is one of the most underutilized factions in recent memory for me. So, yeah. And then, of course, we're going to get Triple H's answer to Roman. I want to see what he says because I know that he did get staples on the side of his head from when he got hit in the head by that.
TV.
It was the TV, yeah. So, what are they going to do there? I'm definitely interested to see it. Like I said, I don't know if you saw anything. I still have I haven't seen that Shane or Undertaker will be there. I know they're going to further it somehow, but I just don't know how yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
But anything else you want to add to what I said? What's something you're looking forward to tonight?
Pretty much everything you said. I want to know what's going on with the Intercontinental title. I want to know what's going on with the Wyatt family, and I want to know what's you know, we talked about the heel real quick. What's going to go on with Ryback? Is he going to be a heel big guy, or is he just trying to just say screw everyone? I need to start going on my own and just what's actually going to happen with Kalisto? Is he going to be a heel, or is he just going to be just a big guy, the big guy?
I think he's going to become a heel. I think the fans are already booing him already, and I think it helps Kalisto's character, to be honest with you, because people are getting behind him a little bit. They already had the Lucha Dragons chant. When people come out and he has the followers, but having Ryback, kind of be like little guys can't. I mean, yes, you see it all the time, the underdogs and the big guys losing the match, but I think it would help Kalisto a lot to get another win, under his belt, especially against a guy like Ryback. So,
Well, we'll see what they go on with that.
yeah, absolutely.
So before Paul takes over, I think we both can agree next week will probably be our biggest episode to date.
Yes.
We'll be doing our WrestleMania, and it's, I guess, WrestleMania / Takeover preview, and I guess prediction show next week. So I think everyone can look forward to that. Definitely next week.
Yes, absolutely. And we have talked about it. It's not official, so we don't want to say it. We are thinking about maybe bringing in a special guest for next week's show to kind of talk about the predictions. But that's not confirmed yet. And then, of course, the week after that, that's going to be a big show. And then you're going to have the Raw after Mania. So, Raw is going to be crazy. And then, of course, we're going to be able to talk WrestleMania. So the next 2 weeks, I think, are going to be great shows.
Real quick. For WrestleMania 5 days, your top 4 in order of what you look forward to most. Hall of Fame, Takeover, WrestleMania, Raw after WrestleMania. What's your top 4 in order? What you're going for, 1 to 4? Yeah, I'm putting you on the
That's tough,
spot.
man. Uh, I don't know. Like it's hard because I I can't. I can Hall of
Yeah,
Fame I put it 4, but not because it's not great. It's
it's
just
just no
because
action.
there's no it's not going to be like a surprise, you know what I mean? You know who's going to come out, and it's an awesome experience as a fan to see
I would
these
shock you
guys
with
show
mine.
up, you know? Um, number 3,
I'll say mine
man.
if you want me to go ahead and say mine first.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you go with 4? What do you got at 4? Do you have the Hall of Fame
Hall
too?
of Fame.
Okay.
3, I have WrestleMania.
No way.
I have the Raw after as number 1 just because of what the
I like the
ramifications
Raw after
of
Mania too.
Raw after WrestleMania. I want to know what's going to happen. And NXT, like I said, it has the potential to be better than WrestleMania. It has the potential.
If I go expectation wise, I would say that I would put the Raw after Mania first because you have no idea. WrestleMania, you know what you're getting into, but
That's
I'm
why I
not saying
said
that
that's what
WrestleMania
I'm
will
saying.
be better, that the Raw after will be better, but I think that there's always that, like you said, there's that mysterious, like, who's showing up tonight? Is it an NXT guy? Is it a former superstar?
That's
Is it
why
someone
it's my number
returning from
1
injury?
because we don't know what's going to happen.
Real quick, too, since we're doing this, type thing, one guy right now, and it has to be realistic, like, you can't say, like, you'd bring him back to face this person. Anyone that's injured right now, who would you bring back to have a match at WrestleMania? And then against who? But don't say like, for example, don't be like, I'd want him to face Goldberg, who's not on the roster. Pick someone that it's a reasonable opportunity.
That's injured.
Yeah, one guy out of any of the wrestlers that are currently injured. Who would you have come back if you could put them on the WrestleMania card right now?
God, you're putting me on the spot. You know what? Probably Cena.
Oh my God! Can I get a boo? Can I get a boo here, Paul?
Just
Jesus.
and here's the reason why on who I would want him to face. Don't kill me on this.
Oh no.
I wouldn't mind him going against Roman Reigns. Roman's
I
gonna
can
come
see it.
off. If you can see Roman, if you can turn Roman full heel, Super Cena saves the day. Cena comes out. He says, these fans, they may boo you or whatnot, but they were, they were before they were behind you 100%. And Cena could be like, you turn your back on the fans. Me, on the other hand, they boo me all they want, but I would never turn my back on the fans. And maybe you could play something like that where Cena's like, no matter what, I'll never turn my back on the fans.
Yeah. Um, like I said, I didn't mean to throw you on the spot there. I actually would like to talk about that maybe more next week on the WrestleMania going, maybe like a little fantasy booking of what you would do. But that was something I thought about today for the injured. But we'll definitely talk about that. I do
What about
agree.
you?
As much as I had to
Obviously,
boo you,
oh,
um,
I thought you were going to say
I
Orton.
I like Cena, but I will keep my answer for the next show. I don't want to hold anyone up too much. I know we're getting close to Raw starting. We'll talk more about it next week. But just a little taste of some stuff to come next week on the preview show and maybe some additions, like I said, of throwing who would you pick
God,
from here
you
to
could have a
bring back.
WrestleMania card with just the injured
Yeah,
people.
exactly. So,
All right, so Paul's on you now, buddy.
All right. So thank you for watching, and you are watching at home on YouTube. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Just hit that subscribe button. That would be fantastic. It would help out the show tremendously. Follow us on Twitter. It's at OT3 Podcast 1. Send us emails, your questions, your favorite matches of the week in Raw or when any other event. Send it to ot3podcast@gmail.com or just post it on our Facebook, which is Facebook.com/ off the top turnbuckle. Post your favorite matches of the week. Like the Facebook page. That would also help us and keep you guys informed of what's going on in the OT3 world. Right, fellas?
yes, absolutely.
And don't forget, kids, eat your bootios.
That's awesome.
See, look, Paul likes it. The same guys we were talking about, Paul, the New Day, they came out with a cereal called Bootios.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, so that's it for me. I think who's gonna take us out?
I will take us out. We'd like to say thanks for watching again. I would like to mention Matt, Shipe Sports Talk.
Oh
Not this Tuesday. Next Tuesday is going to be our MLB special show.
Okay, so we're gonna have a little bit of a extra special one on next Tuesday. So they won't be there on this week, but following week they will be. And while we're talking about the Shipe Sports Talk real quick, I do want to say that I am currently in the lead in the Shipe Sports Talk March Madness bracket. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but at least I can hold that record till Thursday. By the time next week's show is here on Monday, it might be a totally different story. I know that's a little unrelated to
Are you coming
WWE
this
and
Tuesday,
wrestling,
buddy?
but
I formally
I
invited.
I might we'll talk about that Monday again. That'll be an answer you'll have to get on Monday. But as usual, we hope you enjoy Raw. We hope you enjoyed the show. Like Paul said, please like and subscribe, and please send in comments, questions, or anything about something maybe we could do to add to the show, a segment that you might like, or we'd love to get some more fan feedback, whether it's positive or negative.
I'm going to cut a heel promo real quick. You ready?
Okay.
All the fans out there, I'm about to lay the smackdown on Anthony's candy ass in Madden for the Super Bowl.
Oh boy.
No,
Shots fired.
we'll leave that one there, and we will let you go enjoy Raw. As usual, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you enjoyed the show as well. Matt, Paul, thanks again, and I hope everyone has a great night.
See you later, everyone. Enjoy Raw.
Have a good one.